Conservative commentator Ann Coulter appeared on Vivek Ramaswamy's podcast this week. During that conversation, she made a stunning admission that she would not vote for Vivek, despite largely agreeing with him, because he is Indian. Let's watch.
I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity, somebody I've been fascinated by for a long time and have interacted with on social media, but for the first time we're having at least a live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I, too, am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Vivek responded on X, writing, quote, Ann Coulter told me flat out to my face that she couldn't vote for me because you're an Indian, even though she agreed with me more than most other candidates. I disagree with her, but respect she had the guts to speak her mind. It was a riveting hour.
Many took issue with Vivek's. Journalist Zed Jelani wrote on X, quote, okay, what level of simp is Vivek on here that he's like, well, she absolutely hates me for my ethnicity, but I really respect her. Journalist and CEO of Zato News wrote, quote, you respect that she was openly and crudely racist to your face? Sheesh, the things that brown folks will do to be accepted by the white supremacy wing of the GOP. That was Mehdi Hassan. And co-founder of Based Politics, Brad Palumbo, wrote, so Ann Coulter is just racist and you don't even stand up for yourself in the face of blatant racism? Yeah, this was a tough one to try to parse, although I do think I kind of understand it. In this kind of alternative independent media landscape of which we are a part, admitting to being offended by someone being racist, even if they are blatantly and explicitly so, has been characterized as being sensitive or a snowflake, and your kind of merit in this space is all about how much you can withstand. Now, the irony of that is that it's people who are the subjects of racism that are being asked to do all the withstanding among a bunch of, white male predominant members of this community that do all of the offending. And it's just your job to sit there and say, oh, I don't notice someone's being racist. If I say the word racist, they better be able to prove it because there's a body swinging from a tree with a Ku Klux Klan person standing nearby. Otherwise, you lose credibility in the space. And this seems to be the end point of where all that leads. Vivek sitting across from someone saying, I like you, but I will not vote for you because of your ethnicity. And him saying, yes, I respect that she had the guts to say a racism out loud.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit more of that interview, and she then was saying, the reason she gave is that she thinks that immigrants from other parts of the world, including India, are hostile to American values, constitutional values, including the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, free speech, and gun rights.
That's what
I was going to get to. The problem with that being that Vivek is not even an immigrant. He was born in America. So if you're saying that you think, and again, she's admitting that she mostly agrees with him, so then she can't say that, well, I would fear you would be against my values on free speech and other things because you were brought into this country or something. That clearly doesn't apply to him because A, he is a stated someone who agrees with those values from your perspective and is not actually an immigrant. So then what else is it other than racism? What could it be other than racism? Which is why she certainly invited that accusation, and I don't know how you can get around it. It's as close rhetorically as the swinging noose as you can find.
He's from Ohio. I don't know that it gets more American than that. Ohio has had more presidents, fun fact, I know because my mother is obsessed with talking about presidential factoids, than any other state in the country, although there was some debate about it, depending on, are you from there, if you're born there, if you move there, yada, yada, yada. But Ohio has that claim to fame. So this is facially racist. And I got to tell you, I was reminded of something I experienced last weekend at the Due Dissidence Conference. At one point, one of the we were arguing the merits whether Israel is a just war.
I heard.
And one of the other the people who are arguing that the siege on Gaza and the genocide there is in fact just, said, well, I asked about the right of return, and that's fundamentally what Palestinians have been arguing about for 75 years and wanting for 75 years. It is we can't have, he simultaneously argued, well, Israel is a democracy and great and better than the Arab world because we have Palestinians living here, but also you can't allow more Palestinians to come because Palestinians can't live side by side with Israelis. They're not like Danes. You can't have them immigrate to your country. They're not like Danes. Now, have you met every Danish person? Are you saying that every Danish person is more justified to immigrate to Israel than every Palestinian person? Even as you just now said, millions of Palestinians live in Israel peaceably side by side with Israelis. Like, you can't have it both ways. And the whole audience applauded. An audience full of people saw absolutely no issue with the idea that you would say because someone is Danish, a white European Dane, they are constitutionally by feature of their national identity and ethnicity, more suited to being allowed to immigrate to a place than every Arab person on the planet. And that, to me, is the same kind of facial flagrant racism that we see exhibited by her here. And the kind of which you hear in these kind of spaces all the time, that rarely gets any pushback, because if you push back against it, you're told it's not really racism, you're being melodramatic, there's other characteristics, or people start justifying why they do think Arabs are actually worse than other kinds of people. And they don't see that as racist. They think it's factual.
Worse than other kind of people is pretty broad, but it could be the case and probably is. I mean, there are statistical differences in terms of various members of I mean, it might very well be the case that Danish people on average are have lower crime or higher education or higher because of not because that is racially specific or has something to do with genetics, but is the reality of that culture or part of the world that it has certain advantages that are pre-existing. It's not because it's inherited or biological, but that doesn't mean it is not true on average that a person of this ethnicity or national origin has X, Y, or Z traits more likelihood. Like, that is just true. That doesn't tell you anything about a person fitting that description, like what that person is, but on averages
are real. It doesn't tell you anything
real.
about that person is. So we're making immigration rules, judging individuals on the basis of whatever presumption
I'm not making any immigration rules
about the inherent violence of various kinds of people or the inherent negative qualities of various kinds of people. And that is called racism. That is called prejudice, when you prejudge someone on those kind of basis. And that's exactly what Ann Coulter just did to Vivek Ramaswamy, someone who she actually knows about, has read about, has listened to, and says that she affirmatively likes, but would not vote for him because of the race that he is.
Okay, but we all do a certain amount of prejudging based on group characteristics, right? Because they are correct on some level. Like, you would rather be in a room with a bunch of lefties than Republicans, probably, because there are certain characteristics of those people.
If I know them and their personality and their politics actually are that they are left.
Okay, but if you don't know them and you just have to guess.
No, I don't say a room full of white people and say I'd rather not be around them.
I didn't say white people.
Right,
I said,
but I did, because that's the issue here. Whether you're basing it on something you know about someone, like their politics, or whether you're basing it on their skin color. Ann Coulter said, I know your politics. I like your politics.
Right, and she was
I'm
wrong,
judging you
but that
on your
doesn't mean
skin
that
color.
groups don't have characteristics to some extent.
So, this is the kind of defense that gets made in these spaces, and that's why Republicans have such a hard time getting people who are non-white to vote for them, because to be in this space, to be like the kind of people of color that get invited to these kinds of conferences, you have to be willing to sit there while people say things exactly like what Ann Coulter said to him and shrug and say, well, I respect it because it's such a bold thing to do.
Ann Coulter actually is not very welcome in conservative media
circles.
Well,
this is what you said about Nick Fuentes, too. So
well,
it's character after character. None of these people are representative, but they all happen to be there. And I'm telling you, I was just at a conference where one of the largest applause lines in the room was the idea that Danish people are constitutionally fit for immigration in a way that Arab Palestinians who have been kicked out of their home and been refugees for 75 years are not fit to return home, even though in the same breath one will argue that Israel is a wonderful place because Arabs and Jews live side by side peaceably.
Well, I don't know about that comparison, but there are
I do.
people who
It's
want
racist.
the people and A lot of Americans want to take in immigrants with who are going to be worthy contributions to our society, who are hardworking, who have high IQs. Now, that is not only Danish people, obviously. That's a lot of Indian people as well. That's a lot of.
It's not good enough for
Africa.
Ann Coulter.
That's a lot of. Well,
not good
I'm
enough for
not
Ann
agreeing with
Coulter.
her on any level, but it is. It's not wrong. Everyone is not just absolutely and totally equal, and you can't tell anyone apart from anyone else.
Come to America, where everyone is not equal.
Okay, more Rising right after this.